Hi, my name is Bailey Elmore, and today I'm going to talk about the International Council of Women. So, what is the ICW? The ICW was founded in 1888 in Washington, D.C., which coincided with the first National Council, the National Committee of the United States. The ICW aimed to bring together women's organizations from all countries. The goal was to promote human rights, equality, peace, and women's involvement in all spheres of life throughout the establishment of an international federation or umbrella organization of national councils. So these are just a couple of the founding members that I researched, but there is more. The first one I'm going to talk about is Susan B. Anthony. She was one of the most well-known women's rights activists. She believed strongly in the rights of labor and equal pay for equal work. She became an abolitionist activist. Though it was not seen as proper for women to give speeches in public, she often spoke out at conventions. She was also a major member of the women's suffrage movement. The next woman I'm going to talk about is May Wright Sewall. May graduated from Northwestern Female College. After receiving an MA degree, the Sewalls, both her husband and herself, were both teachers, and they founded the Girls Classical School of Indianapolis. During this time, she played a role in the women's rights movements. From 1882 to 1980, she was a chairman of the National Women's Suffrage Movement, and in 1888, Sewall and Frances Willard held the Seneca Falls Convention shortly after the ICW then emerged. The next person I am going to talk about is Frances Willard. She also graduated from Northwestern Female College in 1859. In 1871, she became the first female president of a college granting degrees to women. In 1874, she founded the Women's Christian Temperance Union, the WCTU. The WCTU established homes for working girls, shelters for the abused women and children, and free kindergartens. She was the first president of the ICW, and she advocated for higher education, equal pay, and equality of opportunity. So these were just a couple of pictures that I found. The top left is a group of the International Council of Women. And then the other pictures are Frances, Susan B. Anthony, and May. So how is the ICW different than other groups? The ICW concept of feminism is broad in the sense that it is meant to create a more harmonious and happy life for all women, regardless of social class, ethnicity, or religion. So the ICW work is not limited to reducing political, economic, and civil inequities, but encompasses a moralization of the world so that it can be transformed into a good place for all women and children to live. The ICW firmly believe that there is an ideal situation of well-being, happiness, and justice that is common to all women. So, like I said before, the ICW felt strongly that all women, regardless of their social class, ethnicity, or their religion, should have the right to an ideal situation of well-being and happiness. Was the ICW effective? So, around the same time as the League of Nations in 1945, the equality between men and women was a primary concern for the ICW. Thanks to the ICW and other women's NGOs, equality between men and women became a universal value, henceforth promoted by the United Nations. So even today, the ICW continues to work closely with the United Nations on issues of health, welfare, peace, equality, education, environment, migration, violence, discrimination, trafficking, poverty, and the rights of women, children, refugees, and minorities. So I'm now going to talk about some of the anti-suffragists that the ICW had to endure during this time. So in 1848, many women were invited to speak at the Seneca Falls Women's Rights Convention to voice their opinions, and voice their opinions for change. So Frederick Douglass was an African American male that often supported the women's rights suffragist movement, and he was one of only 31 men to sign the Declaration of Sentiments at the convention. The Declaration of Sentiments from the Seneca Falls Convention used the model of the U.S. Declaration of Independence and demanded that the rights of women as right-bearing individuals to be acknowledged and respected by society. So out of 100 people, only 31 men signed. So that's kind of gives you a view into what it was like then. The women's suffrage movement typically relied on peaceful tactics such as lobbying, parading, and petitioning. Nonetheless, though, the women were not strangers to violence. In 1913, members of the National American Women's Suffrage Association were attacked by spectators as they participated in a suffrage parade in Washington, D.C. After decades of campaigning peacefully yet making little progress and facing violent responses, the suffragists adjusted their strategy to one that embraced firmer methods. And as part of their methods, women began picketing at the White House. In one instance, in 1917, 33 women, members of the National Women's Party, up to even 73 years old, were arrested and tortured.